Okay, hi everybody. This is Jane Ann here, giving you a little help with your mala kit, a little tutorial for those of you who missed the session that we had at Wasted Day, or for those of you who are buying kits and you want to remind yourself of how to do it. In your kit, this is a half mala that we have here. You'll have 54 gemstone beads and 6 spacer beads. Your spacer beads will be rudrakshas, which look a little different from this. They look like this. They're rough, and you can feel them easily when you're doing your meditations with your eyes closed. I've chosen lava stones for my spacer beads just for an aesthetic choice. So the first thing you're going to want to do, unless you have one of these bead boards, which most people don't have, you're going to want to set up the beads in a way that pleases you. I use patterns. I like the way it looks when I have patterns, but you can choose any formulation that you want. If you choose not to use your spacer beads, your half mala might be too small to fit around your head. So keep that in mind. If you don't use your spacers, your half mala can be worn as a bracelet, doubled or tripled around your wrist, and it's quite lovely as well. So as you see here, I've started knotting my mala, but imagine that you're starting with just your string. It should have a knot about 4 to 6 inches from the bottom. It's been waxed with beeswax to make it a little bit easier to work with and to protect it from the beads. When we are knotting mala, our intent is to keep those knots really tight and close to the bead. That serves a couple of purposes. One is that when you are meditating and you're running that over your fingers, you want it to be evenly spaced. Another reason is so that these beads don't move around so much so that they can't fray that nylon thread with wear. This will loosen up over time with wear and tear, and you will end up with a little bit of wiggle in between your beads eventually, but to start, we really want them to be as snug as possible. So once you have your beads set up, just count them and make sure that you have your 54 beads, but don't count your spacer beads. Just count the ones that are around them. And once you have your 54 beads and your guru bead, your tower, and if you have a bigger tassel that has a plastic spacer inside, you will also have a lava stone that we will use later to help anchor this to your half mala. But if you have a small tassel like this size, you will not have one of these. You'll use a different method, which I will show in another video. So, but like I've said, I've started out with some knotting here, but imagine that you're starting out from your first bead. So your string has already been strung with one of these tiny little metal needles, these little wire needles. You're going to put that needle through your gemstone bead. You're going to push it down to your knot, and you're just going to do an overhand knot. Now there's a lot of ways that we can do this. You can do it my method, which is where I loop it around my ring finger. I pinch between my forefinger and thumb, and I pull out my middle finger. I'm keeping this end taut. I use that to push it through, and I grab, and then I pull it all the way through. And then I grab this free end. See, I have my loop here, and I have my free end in this hand, and then I grab the end with this finger. So there's my loop here. I put my finger in the loop just to keep it close to this bead, and I walk it up to the bead with these fingers. And once you've gotten really close to the bead, you take these 2 pieces of the nylon and you just give them a little tug, and that'll tighten up your knot. Now, if you find that a little complicated or it just doesn't really work for you, you can use other things to help you get that knot up to the bead. And one of those things, you can use a stick, you can use a pair of tweezers, a toothpick works well, chopsticks, anything that you like to get that knot closer to the bead. So I'll demonstrate that again. I'll do this knot. I'll go through, I'll pull that all the way through, and now I'll have my loop. I'll get the loop close to the bead, and then I'm going to take this stick and I put the stick through the loop close to the bead, and I pull the loop up to the stick. So that's what's going to walk that. See, it'll walk that knot up to that bead. And then you can pull the stick out and do the same trick as I mentioned before, which is pulling on those two nylon sides of that string. And that'll get you that nice little roundy knot, and it'll snug that up to that bead. I'll do that one more time with the next spacer bead. The lava stones, sometimes they're tricky to find the hole in them because they have all kinds of pitting. So just make sure that you're putting it through the right hole, the drilled hole. So again, I use that bead I push that right up against that knot. That can help snug that knot up too. I wrap it around this finger, grab it here, push that free end through, pull it through, and then I pull that up to that bead. I want it right up to that bead, snug, snug. And I take my two sides, I pull them apart. Now I'm going to continue knotting this all the way around. And when I get to the tassel, the guru, the tower, and the tassel, I will do another demonstration. All right, so as you can see, I have knotted my entire half mala all the way around. Now, when you get to this stage, you'll notice you'll probably have them looking a little wobbly, or they won't be quite straight. Just give them a little tug. And over time, they'll straighten out anyway, but once you give them a tug, it kind of evens out that disparity between the knots. I've switched out my guru bead for a rose quartz one so that you can kind of see what's going on the inside there. This guru bead and the one in your kit has a T intersection. So it has one hole drilled this way and half a hole drilled through the bottom. So this is where the bottom is. The two holes that face each other will be the sides, and those are the sides that you're going to want your strings to go through. So those of you who were at the mala workshop, you had access to these two types of needles. You had an open-ended needle, and you have this needle, the twisted needle. If you have your kit right now, you don't have access to this, but if you have some fine wire, even a guitar string, you can make one of these yourself. They're not difficult to figure out. They're just a small piece of flexible wire. Or you can just use this guy. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna put a slight curve in our needle, because we have to go in through the side of this guru bead and out through the bottom. So that can be a bit tricky. Thankfully, this rose quartz is transparent a little bit, so I can kind of see what I'm doing. So I'm just going to demonstrate how to get this into your T intersection. So you've put a little bit of a curve in that needle, and you find the two holes that face each other. Those are your side holes. You go in through that one side hole, and you want it to come out through the bottom. And then you're just going to pull that right through. Now on your other side, if you have one of these open-ended needles, you can take that and just put it right through here. If you don't have an open-ended needle, you can cut your needle off the other side and just string both ends through that needle. So this, again, we're going to curve this a little bit to try to get it through that T intersection a little easier. And we're going to come back in through the other side, and hopefully we're going to come out through the bottom. Sometimes it takes a couple of tries to get it. And it is, again, it's the most frustrating, challenging part of making a mala is going through this. So once you've done this, it's pretty smooth sailing. We get both our sides through. And they don't get caught on your string. Yes. So once the needles are actually through, once the end of the needle is through, double check and make sure that you haven't dropped your thread behind as I have. Don't pull it all the way through, that your thread through. Get that through the eye. And then pull all the way through so you have both of your strings out through the bottom. Now we have our guru bead on. Now we are going to knot once, twice, and that's just a square knot, just a normal square knot. And you'll see you have that right there. Now we're going to put our tower bead on. It's got a pretty big hole in it, so you can probably just get your first set of strings right through. See? And then the side that has the needle can go through. And we're going to snug that up to the guru, and we're going to give it another 2 knots. We're going to go once, twice, just a square knot. And there's our guru, and there's our tower. Now our guru bead represents a teacher. You can visualize yourself as teaching, or you can associate that with a teacher that you've had that you feel particularly was very instructive for you. And the tower bead symbolizes oneness. Now we've gotten to our tassel. Now, as I've said, if you have a small tassel like this, the method is different. You want to bring these strings in through both sides and then tie a knot in the front and then tie a knot in the back, which I will demonstrate in another video. But we have one of these tassels, which you may have. It has a plastic piece in the center. It's like a tube. So what we're going to do is we are going to get our strings down through that tube and through this lava stone, because this lava stone is going to be our anchor. So we're going to take our open-ended needle again, or like I said before, if you only have the one needle, you can just string on to that one needle. And you're going to go down through your tassel. And then you're going to take those same 2 again. You'll want to start with this side to get it through, because it's a quadruple rather than a double. So it's easier to do the quadruple first. There's Percy the cat. Hi, Percy. Helping. So helping. So we put that through. See, we have our lava stone underneath. You have to kind of move some of the hairs to see where you are. And now we're going to take our other side. We're going to put that through. It might be a little tricky because you bent it before, so you'll probably have to do it in 2 stages. It's probably unlikely you'll be able to get it through both the tassel and the lava stone all at once. Now, to make it a little bit easier for you, put a little bit of tension on the side of the bead and pull the string to the side. And then you're going to put your needle through that hole once again. And it might be a little snug, but that's fine. Now this part is kind of fun. You have to move all your hairs out of the way and make sure that you try not to knot them up into your lava stone. If you do, it's not the end of the world, but you try to have as much of them loose as possible and out of the way. So thread that all the way down. Percy. Now you're going to take your 2 sides of your string and you're going to do another 2 knots, another square knot. So the left side over the right, and again, trying not to get too many of these hairs in there. But as I said, if they get in, it's not the end of the world. There's your first knot. And then your second knot. Now, if you have super glue, that works really, really well on this final knot. I have fabric glue that I use. It has a little needle point on the end, which makes it easier to have precision application. But if you don't have glue with a needle point, you can just use a toothpick. Just put some glue down on a surface and pick some up with a toothpick, because you don't want to put too much super glue on fabric because it does make it brittle. So there I have exposed my knot, and I'm going to take my glue and I'm going to make sure I coat that knot both sides and a little bit of the free end of the string, because it does fray once it's cut. Luckily, this is going to be hidden underneath my mala, so I'm not going to be too concerned with the ends being cut very short. Now I'm going to give it a couple of seconds to settle up a little bit, to let the glue get a little bit hard. And once that's done, I'm going to come in with my little snips, and I'm going to snip on that side, snip. Careful not to snip your tassel. And there we have it. And we have finished our mala. Do you like it, Percy? If you have any trouble following any of these instructions, or if something isn't clear, please feel free to reach out to me and I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have. Happy knotting!